Okay, Phil, the entire rehab pathway is going to take anywhere from 10 to 12 weeks, and the best way for us to shorten that time frame is by following the rehab instructions closely and by coming in a few more times than standard recovery so we can push your rehab. How does that sound to you? Now here, the patient will usually say yes, and then we enter the script. Okay, let me start off with the best result plan first, and I'll show you what that looks like. If you think it fits, we'll go with that one, but if it doesn't, I'll show you the next best until we find something that fits. Is that okay? Again, the patient will say yes, so we continue. Okay, the best results we get for this type of injury lies in the first 4 to 6 weeks, where our patients will come to see us for a minimum twice a week, and once we get through that initial period of healing, it's once a week until they're ready for discharge if all things go smoothly. The reason we do this is because the first 6 weeks is when the injury is most vulnerable, so if we don't do the right things, it might make the next 6 weeks even harder to progress. The main downside to this is it does require a bit more time commitment from our patients, and if they're on a budget, it might not be realistic. That's the best result option. How does that sound? Now, if the patient says, okay, let's just do that, then just book them in twice a week for the next 6 weeks. But if they say, okay, but what's after that? You say, the next best plan we have is twice a week for the first fortnight, followed by once a week until you're ready for discharge if all things go smoothly. Like the previous plan, it's just the most sensitive period of your injury, so we like to monitor and progress it carefully before you become more independent from week 3 onwards. Most patients prefer this plan if they're just looking for steady rehab and aren't in an urgent rush to recover. There's really no downside to this. You've just got to be prepared for at least 12 weeks of rehab. How does that sound? Now, most patients will say yes, and if they don't, you just move on to your last option. Okay, the last option, and we don't recommend doing any less than this because things go wrong more than they go right, is once a week for the entire 12 weeks. Now, this option requires a lot of exercise history and confidence from the patient because they'll be doing a lot of rehab on their own. The main downside is if you don't have the history or the confidence, most people do have a delayed recovery or don't recover at all during this time period. What do you think? Now, most patients will either pick the last option or they revert back to option number 2. Now, if they do want an even lower option, you could go lower, but it's unlikely they're going to commit to the full term of care anyway, so I think you're better off just telling them it's not going to work. Okay, so that's the script. You can use that right away, or if you want to understand why it's powerful, then keep watching because I'm going to explain to you step by step, word for word, exactly what I'm doing.